What's going on, Jets fans? DTereman here with a quick video about some underrated players on the Jets 2025 offense. But before I get into those players, I definitely want to give a shout out to every single person who has liked, subscribed, interacted with my new YouTube channel. Definitely a transitional period right now, but I appreciate everybody's support and I can't wait to, chop it up and make more content for every single person that has tuned in this summer. With that said, the first player on the underrated list for me heading into 2025 is Olu Fashanu, left tackle. Last year he played in 11 games and he played at three different positions on the offensive line: 7 games at left tackle, 3 games at right tackle, and 1 game at right guard. Throughout those 11 games, he only allowed 1 sack, and that sack was to fellow rookie Leatu Latu from the Indianapolis Colts. I went back and I watched that play on film with NFL Pro Plus, and it really wasn't Fashanu's fault. When you watch the play, Morgan Moses gets beat by Kwity Paye off the edge, coming off the right hand side, and Rodgers gets a little timid once he sees Morgan Moses fall onto his back. He, quick gives a peek and tries to escape to the pocket left, and Fashanu gets beat by Latu, and I think more of the scramble and the escape from the pocket that Rodgers had to do led to the sack more so than Fashanu just getting beat on the rep. It wasn't a great rep from Fashanu, but I don't think if you could divide up a pie chart of sacks allowed, Morgan Moses would definitely be responsible for some of that sack. So although it was a sack allowed to Fashanu on his stat sheet, I don't think it was 100% his fault. So a great sign of things to come in pass pro from the rookie. He did have 7 total penalties, 4 of which came in the last 3 games. And I understand at the back end of the season, you look for things that are going to translate into the next season. But with the 2024 Jets, it's so hard to know what's going to translate from the back half of last season because everything was so dysfunctional. Coaching was inept. The offensive play was bad. We were just forcing the ball to Devontae, throwing the ball over the yard. So it was very hard to get a glimpse of exactly what is going to transfer over to 2025. So the penalties to me is not a huge deal. He only had 3 penalties in the first 8 games. So to surrender 4 in the last 3 is a big number, but I don't think it's something too worrisome heading into 2025. He is obviously the clear-cut left tackle with rookie Armand Membu going to man the right tackle spot. So you're hoping you have bookend tackles for the next 4, 5, 6 years with this franchise, and I think Fashanu is going to be a cornerstone piece of this offense for years to come. The second player on my list of underrated 2025 Jets is Josh Reynolds. And I had to go back to the 2023 stats for Josh because that's when he played with Tanner Engstrand and the Detroit Lions. In 2024, he moved on to the Denver Broncos, and then he was later traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he finished out the regular season. So looking at his 2023 numbers, he had a 57.1% contested catch rate. In 2024, that number plummeted to 37.5. So my hope for Reynolds is that number comes back up into form around league average, maybe slightly above league average, and can get back into the 50 to 60% range. You don't want to see a guy with a frame as large as his not catching more than 50 or 60% of his contested catches. So a 3 catch on 8 contested catch opportunities from last year in 2024 is not a great figure. We definitely want to see that improve. He did have in 2023 75 targets, 48 catches, 740 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And just baseline, looking at just the stats alone, that is amazing wide receiver 2 production if you put that into the 2025 Jets offense. You would have to go all the way back to 2019 when Robbie Anderson had just over 700 catches as the second leading wide receiver on the New York Jets. So you're talking about a 6-season lull of production from the wide receiver 2 spot. We obviously know how special Garrett Wilson is. He's, 900 to 1,000 yards almost every single season, easy, even with the downgrade in quarterback that we're expecting. But to get 740 yards and 6 touchdowns out of your wide receiver 2, that would just be amazing production. 5 drops for Reynolds in 2023, 2 of which came in the NFC Championship game. And obviously, 5 is a fairly large number. It's not going to be as alarming of a drop rate as maybe Alan Lazard or Arian Smith's final year at Georgia, but 5 is still a decent number. You want to see that number improved upon. Um, and I do think schematically he will run routes that will help Justin Fields, and it's going to be a benefit to both of them. The seam routes, the deep in breakers, those deep dig routes at 15 yards, I think those are going to be the confidence throws that I've been talking about with Justin Fields heading into the 2025 season. So I do think from a schematics perspective, Josh Reynolds could be a huge benefit for Justin Fields in this offense. He obviously has a familiar baseline of trust with the coaching staff. He was in Detroit, where Aaron Glenn and Engstrand came from, and then he was also in Denver for the first half of last season, where he was there with our general manager, Darren Muji. So he is very familiar with the people that are running the Jets currently, and I think that that will help him in the long run on the depth chart. And the final stat I have is 11.7 average depth of target, or ADOT. 12.1 for his career. So he gave you about similar production in 2023 as he would averaging out his whole career. So to me, that says that he's more of an intermediate to deep threat, like I just mentioned schematically with Justin Fields. Those are the types of throws that I think he needs to be able to consistently hit and consistently make at the NFL level for him to be a more successful quarterback. And I think Josh Reynolds will just go a long way in helping Justin Fields earn that confidence. The final guy on my list of underrated Jets for 2025 is Braylon Allen, another second-year player, running back. He had a 78.7% yards after contact rate, so 263 of his 334 yards came after contact, well above league average. And considering the workload increase that you would assume he would take, being a run heavy offense in 2025 as opposed to being one of the league's pass happiest offenses in 2024, you would have to think that those numbers are just going to increase. Maybe 78.7% is not a sustainable figure after contact with a larger workload, but if he's able to get more than 60 to 65% of his yards after contact as a physical downhill runner, that can make for some really, really explosive runs. Speaking of explosive runs, he did have 5 runs of 10 plus yards in 2024. His longest run came 20 yards exactly. So he's not going to be that home run speed type of guy. But when you factor in that his workload should increase, I do think this number will increase as well. If he can get around 7 or 8, 10 plus yards on the ground at a clip, I think that would be a huge improvement from that standpoint. The issue I did have with Braylon Allen, and it's not so much Braylon Allen, but the coaching staff, of course, because we had so many issues with the 2024 coaching staff. The scheme alignment for Braylon Allen was quite frankly backwards. They had him on PFF listed as 54 zone scheme runs and 36 gap scheme runs. Now, if you just watch the way Braylon Allen runs the football, gap scheme is the way to go, where he's just running downhill in between the tackle, or between the tackle and the guard, or between the guard and the center. He's not really pushing it outside the tackle box, where we'll see Breece Hall, where he can, put his foot in the ground and go and find the hole. I'm not saying Braylon Allen can't do that. I just think that a gap scheme where it's like, okay, you're running through the A gap on this play. We know that. You're going to have a pulling guard, like a trap play. I think those are the types of plays, the schemes rather, that are going to help him more than trying to get him outside the tackle box and into, the open field that way. I think he's just going to be more of your downhill, just get it and go type of runner. And based on what we saw last year, the coaching staff was basically telling you every time they went under center with number 0 in the backfield behind Rodgers, they were going to hand it to him. It was very obvious at that point. They didn't even run too much play action, and they definitely didn't do a lot of passing from under center with Braylon on the field. So that is definitely an area of improvement. More gap scheme runs for this offense in general, but also for Braylon Allen specifically. And then as a pass catcher, he's going to give you a net positive in the pass catching game. He caught 19 of his 26 targets, so that's a 73% catch rate, which is very good for a running back. He did have 4 drops, however. And if that figure is to decrease, perhaps he only has 1 or 2 drops, and he still maintains a 73% catch rate, you would assume that the Jets are running a lot of screens to him, hopefully. Like, please, can we just run a screen pass that works and is effective and that the defense can't see coming from a mile away? So, Braylon Allen, gap scheme runs, screen game passes. I would love to see him more involved, get those numbers up as his RB2, and I do think the coaching staff has taken a liking to him. Not saying they dislike Breece Hall or Isaiah Davis, but I do think they will trend towards the Braylon Allen physicality, where he can be the David Montgomery of the Lions last year, and Breece can be more of the Jahmyr Gibbs of that backfield. And I'm not saying the Jets are a Lions B team, like Jay Gruden might say, but I do think there is some similarities in the backfield, whereas they have potential to be closer to Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery than anything else. So those are my 3 guys: Olu Fashanu, Josh Reynolds, Braylon Allen. Those are my 3 on offense. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Hit a like and subscribe on your way out. I'll do defense in the upcoming days. And let's go Jets. Talk to you guys soon.